Hey everybody. Today I'm going to tell you guys a story about my second child's birth and all the stuff that I went through and everything while I was pregnant. Okay. When I found out I was pregnant, it was like 2 months before my daughter's birthday. So I kept it a secret until it was my daughter's birthday and we had her party and stuff. And I had like little presents for the mammals. Like my mom goes by Nana. So Nana and my stepdad, he was Papa. And then my kid's dad's is Papa. And this is like I got them like a little outfit or like a shirt and it said hello Nana and Papa and then hello Mama and Papa. 2024. Telling them that, hey, I'm having my second child. You guys are going to be my mom and papa again. And they were so excited. I was excited. I wanted another child. And because I didn't want my daughter to grow up without a best friend. And then a few weeks go by and we was trying to figure out what the gender was and stuff. And me and my kid's dad, father, was keeping it to each other, like to ourselves. That way we can surprise them. And we had like a Thanksgiving dinner. That's when we found out it was like almost Thanksgiving. So I made a Thanksgiving dinner, trying to learn how to do it and everything. And it was pretty good. And then we tried to do the balloon, put the paint in the balloon, but before they got here, it popped on him, on the kid's dad, and it was so funny. It was so funny. He's like, no, they're gonna know. So he had to run and change and everything. And we had pumpkins left over from Halloween. So I told him use the pumpkin that we didn't carve or anything because we just let my kids paint it. And I said, use the pumpkin that we didn't paint or we did paint or something. And just cut the top off and clean it out real good and put the paint in there. So that's what we did. And he we broke it open, put it that way. And that's how we found out that, well, that's how they found out that we was having a girl. I done a live on Facebook and everything. That way other people can watch it and stuff. So that's how we found out she was a girl. And then we just had to come up with a name. I wanted to name her Paris, but he's like, no. And I was like, okay. So, and then I wanted to name her Ohana, like off the Stitch, because I love Stitch. But he's like, no. And then we come up with Willow. And I was like, well, if she ain't a girl, it would still suit her, because sometimes genders can be messed up on the ultrasound. I also done the DNA test thing too, but you never know. It could be off. But I thought I was having a boy the whole time because, like, the way I felt, it was different from my first pregnancy and everything. And then it turned out to be a girl, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. Like, I already have one girl. It's not going to be hard. And I kept some of my girls' clothes, like baby clothes, so it was a good thing. And then, um, so we picked out Willow, and I was like, well, I want to put Ohana in it. And he's like, no. And I was like, yes, you picked out the first name, I'm going to pick out the middle name. And he's like, okay. And then he's like, why don't you take one of your middle names out of your name and put it in it? So I picked out Lynn and put it in there. So, yeah. Willow Hannah Lynn is her name. Not telling you her last name because why should I? And then a few months go by, I was fine. And then I think the last month or couple weeks, my daughter come down with RSV and I caught it. And on top of that, I had strep, so I was on antibiotics. So I went to one of my baby doctor's appointments and I was like, hey, to my doctor, I'm like, I'm on antibiotics because I had strep. And then I messaged him whenever I found out I had RSV and told him that I had RSV. And he's like, well, stay dehydrated. And I was like, okay. So I did that. I mostly slept, but my daughter was about over it and stuff. And her mama also caught it, and she was over hers, and Aurora was about ready over hers. So I was like, hey, can you take care of Aurora until I'm over it, because I was scared that she might catch it again, but we wasn't 100% sure if she could or couldn't, and I didn't want her to catch it again because like it was horrible and stuff. And like a week before I had to go back to my doctor's appointment, I was, like stressed out and worried because like I wasn't feeling good, and then I knew my daughter wasn't feeling good, and I was worried about her, and I was worried about my baby, and being stressed out about that when your child gets sick, it's stressful because you don't know what's wrong with them at times, and you don't know how they feel. They can only cry and whine about it and stuff, and like not really physically tell you at the time. But we got over that, and then but then she started getting sick again, and I didn't know what was wrong with her. She was complaining with her stomach hurting and stuff, and I was like, well, you need to eat. So I fed her food and stuff, and she acted like she was going to try to throw up on me and stuff, and I was like, well, maybe she has acid reflux or something wrong with her. The next day, she slept all day, and I slept all day, and like the next day, like I had a doctor's appointment with my baby doctor. I was 37 weeks. It was my 37-week checkup, and my kid's dad couldn't take me because he had to work, and so I messaged my mom, so their nana, if she could take me, and she said yeah, and I was so glad that she could have taken me because it was either I would have to cancel and reschedule it and stuff, and that would have been stressful. But I know that night, like, my daughter wouldn't go to sleep. She stayed up all night. And she played. She was fine. Like, she was up running around and stuff. Like, she wasn't trying to run a fever or nothing. She acted like nothing was bothering her. And then that morning, she started not feeling good again. And I was like, well, maybe it's because she's sleepy. So I got her to sleep. So I took me a little nap with her. And then I got up like a couple, like 2 hours before I had to leave my house, before my mom got here and picked me up. And I got up and started getting ready and stuff. And I thought I peed on myself and stuff, but apparently I was leaking fluid, and I didn't know I was leaking fluid. And like I told my kid's dad, I said, I think I lost my mucus plug the other night. And he's like, well, how do you know? I was like, I'm not 100% sure if it's my mucus plug or not. So, yeah. And then I went to the doctor. We got to the doctor's and I signed in and stuff, and I sat down, and then they called me back, and I, weight, blood pressure, hand you a pee cup. So I went to the lab and peed in my cup and hand it to them, and come back, sat down, wait for the ultrasound person to call me back. And before they called me in and stuff, like, my child got so sick on me, she vomit all over me, and I took her to the bathroom. I went to the bathroom. Thank God I had to go because, like, I had to pee anyways. But I cleaned myself off after I got done using the bathroom and stuff. I got some paper towels and stuff and wet them and cleaned myself off and dried me off as best as I could. And then I took some towels and cleaned my daughter's face off and washed her off as best as I could. And then when I got back, they called me in, so I went in. Me, my mom, and my daughter, Aurora, went in, and I love whenever Aurora gets so happy when she first saw her sister on the screen and stuff, and she's like, "That's my sissy." And I said, "Yeah, that's your sissy." And she was so excited, and she said, "Oh, it's a baby." And I said, "Yeah, it's your sissy." And stuff, and she was loving on me, and she's trying to take the gel off my belly and everything. It was so funny. And then after that, Aurora we got back outside, and Aurora was not feeling good, and she was like, "I'm thirsty." So I looked at Mom, and I was like, "Mom, will you gonna run her up to Food City and get her like 7-Up or something, because that might calm her stomach down." And stuff. So I had planned on taking her to the doctor after I got done seeing the doctor, because, like, it's on the other side of the place that I go to for my baby doctor. And I just had to run across the other side of the building and just take her in and sign her in and everything. So it wouldn't took me long. But I messaged Mom and told her that they called me back and that I was in the room waiting and stuff. So that I'll be out whenever I get done talking to the doctor. Oh yeah, I forgot the ultrasound person told me that my fluid looked low, so the doctor might be talking to me about that. And I was like, okay. Well, it's not the first time that my fluid was low, because whenever I had Aurora, Aurora's fluid was low too. But I had to go to the hospital and just get fluid at the time. It could have been different. It was a different situation this time. I went, and he asked me what level dilated was I last time that he seen me, and I told him that he told me that I was going on to a 1, and he said okay, and he's like, "I'll check you, see how dilated you are today," and I was like, okay. He checked, and he told me that I was a 2 going on a 3, and I said alright. And he's like, "Your fluid is so low that you need to go to the hospital whenever you go back to the house and get whatever you need. Take your time. It's not like I had been down there in so fast." So he's like, "We might have to induce you to have this baby." And I was like, okay. And I was scared, like I wasn't ready to have her like 3 weeks months to go before I had to have her. And I walked out, and my mom was coming back in, and she ran into me with my daughter. She had my daughter, and she's like, "What's going on?" And I told her, and I broke out in tears because, like, I was scared and nervous, And I told her that I had to go to the hospital after I get everything and stuff. And she's like, "Well, do you got enough time to get you something to eat? And I was like, yeah, I'm hungry. So we stopped by Wendy's, and I called the kid's dad, and I'm like, hey, calling from work, we have to go to the hospital. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I have to go to the hospital. And he's like, why? And I'm like, well, they're going to induce me to have this baby. And he's like, oh, okay. So he called in from work. I asked him if he wanted anything to eat from Wendy's. He said, yeah, sure. So I got him something to eat. And I come back. We ate. I got the stuff ready. I got my kids' clothes and stuff. And I called his mom and his stepdad. They're my mom and papa. And I was like, hey, can you come pick up Aurora? Because I have to go to the hospital and have to be induced. So they come and picked her up, took her home. My mom went home after she dropped me off at the house. She went home because she had to do stuff before she can come back up to the hospital because she was in the labor room with me. It was her, like, my mom, his mom, him, and me in the delivery room. Obviously, I had to be there. I was the one having a baby. But we got there, you know, they make you fill out paperwork and stuff. So I filled out paperwork, got in my room, had to put the nightgown on, had to pee in another cup. And then they asked me if I was hungry. I told them no, that I already ate, and they said okay. Got in the bed, waited for them to come back. They put the IV in me, and what else did they do? They handed me a bunch of paperwork. I filled some of it out, and then I had to give
their
it to
dad
them
to
fill
fill the rest.
out. They started inducing me. They put the medicine in and stuff, and I was fine all night. And then that morning, I buzzed them in. My contractions was starting to get more intense. They checked me and stuff like I was dilated to a 4. And I asked them if they would just go ahead and give me the pain medicine in my IV, and they did. And I didn't get no epidural. I told them I didn't want it because last time it messed me up so bad and stuff. And they was like, okay, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I'm 100% sure. I don't want the epidural. I want to have it just natural as I can. And I was like, okay. They gave me the medicine. I fell back to sleep because it kind of knocks you out, but it wakes you up when you have a contraction. So I was in and out. His mom, my mom, was there. He was there. I told him that he couldn't run outside and leave me alone and stuff. I told him as long as there was someone in there with me, that was fine. He can go outside and, you know, what most people does nowadays. And my mom and his mom kept running in and out every few hours or every few minutes. And I was in so much pain, you know, and I was like annoyed with it in a way because, like, you guys are supposed to be my support and you're supposed to be in the room with me. That's how I felt. And then at one point, I literally, like, cussed them out and told them that they was acting like a bunch of 3-year-olds running in and out, because that's what a 3-year-old would do, like a little kid and stuff. But at the time, it was funny because, like, I was having dreams, like I was having hallucination dreams because of the pain medicine, and where I was in pain, like, it made me hallucinate a little bit, and I was having dreams that people was working in my working shop, like Willy Wonka up in here. And I had little Oompa Loompas running around. It was so funny. But then, like, the nurse, like, we had a buzz in, like, we had to go get the nurse because, like, I had to use the bathroom. And they're like, well, you can't get up. I was like, okay. So they slipped the pan underneath me and helped me, go to the bathroom and stuff. And my nurse was so sweet. She's like, lay on your side, but, like, get comfortable, make yourself comfortable. So I laid on my side most of the nights. Like, I turn and toss and every so often. And I know, like, around 8 or 9 or something, the doctor comes in, he breaks my water and stuff, and I was dilated. I think I was still a 4 at the time, but he still had to break my water to get it to go faster and stuff. I felt everything that he was doing when he was busting my water, and I literally, like, it was a whirlpool, it felt like. Okay, and then after that, it was fine. And then his mom and my mom was trying to go outside and, what everybody does. And my doctor was having an emergency C-section, and no one was allowed to leave the room or anything, and they got bought out. It's kind of funny, in a way. But it kind of made me mad, because, like, no one come on there and come and be like, hey, you can't leave your room. We're having an emergency C-section or anything. So, yeah. A couple more hours go by. It's like, I think 11. She come and checked me again. And I remember I kept telling, like, they kept trying to cover me up, but I kept throwing the cover off because I was getting hot and stuff. And when I was telling them go get the nurse and stuff, I was reaching behind my back and rubbing up from my butt up because I was in so much pain. Like, the contraction was, like, so bad. Like, it felt like it started in my butt cheek and went up my back. Like, hell, that's how bad it hurt. And then a couple more minutes go by and I'm like, go get the nurse. Go get the nurse. So my kid's dad, he was like, no, you just want the epidural and stuff. And I was like, no, go get the nurse. So he left to try to go find a nurse. He come back, he's like, I couldn't find a nurse. His mom left, went and get some KFC because they was getting hungry. And they knew any minute I could have this baby. And I was going to be hungry. And I was. And she's gone for, I think, 30 minutes. Okay. When it hit 11:30 or 12:30 or something, I don't know if she checked me at 11 or checked me at 12, but I know it was like one of those times. I think it was 11:30. I was in excruciating pain. I was ready to have a baby. I kept yelling, I had to poop. I have to poop. I have to poop. I was pooping. I didn't care. I had to poop. That's what I was thinking. I had to poop. I had to get it out. I literally pooped all over myself. And they was yelling at me, stop. And I was like, I can't. My body is telling me to push. And then, finally, the nurse walks in after I was telling them and it felt like an hour and a half, I needed a nurse. And she said, okay, you guys okay? And we're like, no, she's pooping. And she's like, oh my God, she's ready to have this baby. And I was like, but she's like, first let me clean you up. So her and my kid's dad was trying to clean me up. And I was screaming at my kid's dad, thought he was on top of my hip because it was coming apart. And I was screaming at him, get him off my hip, it hurts. And he wasn't even on my hip. And she's like, hold on, let me go get some medicine or something, and I'll be right back. And my kid's dad looked at me and was like, quit pushing. And I was like, I can't. And he's like, you can. And I was like, my body is telling me to push. I wish you was me for maybe 30 minutes and you would see how I felt. And then I had to put her gloves on and stuff. And they had to pull the shackles out. And they pulled the shackles out, or whatever they call it. I don't know what they're called. The leg holders. So I had to slide my foot in and stuff. And my mom was on one side. He was on one side. And I didn't want his hand. I wanted my mom's hand. So I got a hold of my mom's hand. And I was squeezing. She said I hurt her hand that day. I felt everything. And then here come my doctor, all you gagging. It's like, oh, I didn't know I had someone in labor until I was walking down the hallway. I just come from back from the cafeteria. And I was like, yeah, And then he's like, breathe. And I was like, I can't. My body's telling me to push. So I stopped, breathe for a few minutes, and he's like, push whenever you have a contraction. And like my contraction stopped for a while, and then I was like, and then my contraction come back on, and I was like, okay, let's get it over with. And then like 2 more pushes, and I had her. But the pain that I felt, it's like it's a burning pain, and then like I couldn't feel nothing, but all I felt was like a burning pain, and my hips and my back felt like they was breaking in two. That's all I felt. But I had her, and I felt like crap. But I got her and held her, and I was so happy. First, I thought there was something wrong with her, because like with my first child, when she come out and they picked her up, she whined. Willa didn't whine right away, and it scared me, and I was like, oh my God, is she okay? Is she okay? She was fine. She finally started whining and stuff, and they did the thing where they lay her on your chest for an hour, and I laid there with her on my chest for an hour, and I breastfed her for the first time, and it was the most beautiful thing ever. And I breastfed her until she was 8 months old, and then I quit because I got a job, and she's growing. She's my wild child. She's gonna be my troublemaker, and I wouldn't change her for the world. My next story might be on when I have Aurora. Oh yeah, and after I had her, I caught the stomach bug after Aurora gave it to me. So I had to stay in the hospital one more night. And then we had to stay another night. We had to stay 4 nights in this hospital. And it was horrible. But we had to stay an extra night because her yellow ginger? I don't know how to say it. It's where your skin is yellow. And they's like, well, if her blue ribbon don't go down long or go up high, we'll just might have to keep her. But thank God it stayed the same, because I propped her up I opened up the windows and propped her up in the windows. That way she can get sunlight, and I wouldn't have to stay in there for another night. And then after she got him out, I took my kid outside when it warmed up, and I took her out there. I held her in the sun for a few minutes, and then I would put her in the shade, or we would come back in, because like it was hot, and I didn't want my child to get hot. But thank you for watching my video. Please leave me a like, a comment, and subscribe. And I hope y'all like my video and everything. And sorry about my voice. I'm kind of sick. My sinuses are acting up really, really bad. But I will tell you guys, my first child's birth and everything, it really wasn't. It was during COVID, so it was kind of sheltered. There wasn't really much people around, so. But thank you for watching my channel.